Welcome to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most powerful poetic works in English literature, that is Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, which has been written by William Blake. First published in the late 18th century, this unique collection brings together two contrasting sets of poems. Songs of Innocence published 1789 and Songs of Experience published 1794. Together they form what Blake famously described as the two contrary states of the human soul. Blake was not just a poet, he was also a painter, engraver, and visionary thinker. His poetry blends deep spirituality with strong political and social commentary. In this collection, he explores how innocence, often linked with childhood, purity, and harmony, is challenged and sometimes corrupted by the harsh realities of experience, such as poverty, repression, and institutional control. In this video, we will explore both Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, summarizing key poems, analyzing themes, and finally comparing how Blake uses these poems to critique his word and offer a deeper insight into human nature. So, whether you are a student, a lover of poetry, or just curious about the mind of William Blake, stay tuned. Before we dive into the poems, let's take a quick look at the man behind them, William Blake. William Blake was born in 1757 in London. He was not only a poet but also a painter, printmaker, and mystic. Although largely unrecognized during his lifetime, today he is celebrated as one of the most original and visionary figures in English literature and art. Blake lived during a time of great social and political change. The Industrial Revolution, the American and French Revolutions, and growing unrest in England. But rather than aligning with political parties or institutions, he expressed his radical ideas through deeply symbolic and imaginative poetry and illustrations. Blake believed that true vision comes not from reason but from imagination, and much of his work reflects a spiritual struggle between good and evil, innocence and corruption, heaven and hell. He often criticized organized religion, monarchy, and materialism, challenging the dominant institutions of his day. His art and poetry were inseparable. In fact, he personally engraved and hand colored his poems, creating illuminated manuscripts, a rare blend of word and image. Blake's Song of Innocence and of Experience capture the heart of his philosophy. Through simple language and rich symbolism, he explores how the purity of childhood is shaped and often shattered by the harshness of the world. Let's now take a look at the collection Songs of Innocence and of Experience. This book is actually made up of two parts: Song of Innocence, written in 1789, and Songs of Experience, added in 1794. Later, Blake combined them into one full collection, calling it Songs of Innocence and of Experience, showing the two contrary states of the human soul. That subtitle is really important. Blake believed that human life is full of opposites like joy and sorrow, purity and corruption, or childhood and adulthood. So, in these poems, he shows both sides of the soul. Innocence stands for childhood, purity, and a kind of peaceful, trusting view of the world. Experience shows the darker side, where we face suffering, loss, injustice, and the harsh realities of life. Each poem in the innocence section is often mirrored or contrasted by a poem in the experience section. For example, the lamb from Innocence is balanced by the tiger in Experience. Blake wanted us to see both perspectives, not to choose one over the other. Some of the key themes that run through the collection include childhood and innocence, social injustice and poverty, religion and spirituality, nature and the human soul, the effects of industrialization and organized power. Blake used symbol language, but the poems are deep and meaning. Each line is rich with symbols, questions, and emotions. Whether you read these as children's songs or as critiques of society, they leave a powerful impression. Now let's explore the main themes in Songs of Innocence. This section of the collection focuses on childhood, simplicity, and purity. Blake believed that young children are closest to the divine. They live in a world of love, trust, and imagination, untouched by the corruption of society. Here are some of the key themes found in Songs of Innocence. Blake presents childhood as a time of purity and closeness to God. Poems like The Lamb and Infant Joy celebrate the gentle, trusting nature of children. They see the world with wonder and faith. Many poems are set in natural surroundings like fields, valleys, rivers. Nature is seen as peaceful and nurturing, just like the innocence of a child. Blake uses simple musical language to reflect this purity. Apart from that, Blake often suggests that God is present in every innocent soul. In The Lamb, for example, the child asks who made the lamb and answers that it was God who also created him. This shows the deep connection between innocence and divinity. Blake emphasizes kindness, care, and compassion. In The Chimney Sweeper, from the innocent section, even though the child is suffering, he dreams of angels and hope. There is a belief that love and protection will come from above. Although Songs of Innocence seems joyful on the surface, Blake also hints at the darker truths of the world, the child labor and social injustice, but he expresses these through the innocent eyes of children, keeping the tone hopeful. In short, Songs of Innocence is not just about sweetness and joy, it also quietly raises questions about the world we live in. It shows us how innocent views the world before experience brings pain and understanding. Now let us take a closer look at a few selected poems from Songs of Innocence. William Blake's poetry might seem simple at first, but it's filled with deep meaning and powerful social messages. So first of all, we will discuss The Lamb. Lamb is one of the most famous poems in this collection. It's written as a gentle question and answer between a child and a lamb. The child asks, "Little lamb, who made thee?" and then answers that it was God who also made him. The poem is rich with religious symbolism. The lamb represents innocence, softness, and Christ himself. The child's voice is innocent and full of faith, showing Blake's belief that children are close to the divine. The second poem, Chimney Sweeper, it is about a young child who works as a chimney sweeper, a very harsh and dangerous job. Even though the subject is dark, Blake presents it through the innocent voice of the child. The child tells of a dream where angels come to rescue the sweepers and promise them a better life. It's a heartbreaking poem because it shows how children cope with suffering by holding on to hope. Blake is actually criticizing society here, how innocent children are forced into labor and still expected to accept it quietly. It's a gentle but powerful protest. The next poem, Infant Joy, celebrates the pure joy of a newborn child. The speaker asks the baby its name, and the baby replies, "Joy is my name." It's a short and sweet dialogue between a parent and the infant. Here, Blake captures the innocence and simplicity of new life before any sorrow, pain, or expectations. It reflects the purest form of love and happiness. The next poem, Holy Thursday, here Blake glorifies children as holy beings. These poems may seem like childlike, but Blake uses the innocent voice to shine light on deeper truths about God, joy, suffering, and the human condition. In Songs of Innocence, we see the word through the eyes of purity before it is touched by experience. After exploring the gentle word of innocence, Blake shifts his tone in Songs of Experience. These poems reveal a darker, more realistic picture of the world. Here, Blake shows us what happens when innocence is lost, when children grow up, when society corrupts, and when experience brings pain, doubt, and injustice. One of the main themes in Songs of Experience is the loss of innocence. Unlike the sweet and trusting voices in Songs of Innocence, the speakers here are often bitter, sad, or angry. They have seen the harsh side of life. Blake wants us to understand that the world is not always kind, especially to the weak and the innocent. Blake was deeply troubled by the social problems of his time, like poverty, child labor, and inequality. In Songs of Experiences, he uses his poetry to criticize the institutions that allow this suffering, like the church, the government, and even the idea of blind obedience. For example, in the poem London, Blake describes a city filled with misery. He hears cries of men, children, and women, all victims of a society that claims to be civilized, what is deeply flawed. Blake also explores how religion and authority can become corrupt. In poems like The Garden of Love, he shows how organized religion often destroys natural joy and love with rules and fear. He believed that real spirituality should be based on love and not on control. He says that experience is not all bad. It brings awareness and sometimes wisdom, but it also brings sorrow and pain. Blake's idea is not that innocence is better, but that a balance is needed. If we lose innocence completely, we become cold and cynical. But if we never gain experience, we stay naive. वो कहते हैं ना कि आपके मन में जो बच्चा है ना वो हमेशा ज़िंदा रहना चाहिए, लेकिन आप हमेशा बच्चे नहीं रहने चाहिए, ठीक है। तो यू नीड टू ग्रो अप बट कीप द चाइल्ड विद इन यू अलाइव. In Songs of Experience, Blake gives voice to the suffering and questions that come with growing up and living in an imperfect world. These themes still speak to us today, reminding us to question power, protect the innocent, and never stop imagining a better world. Let's now take a closer look at some of the most powerful poems from Songs of Experience. These poems are darker, more complex, and filled with Blake's deep criticism of the society he lived in. First of all, we will discuss The Tiger. The Tiger is one of Blake's most famous poems. It begins with the famous line, Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. This poem explores the mystery of creation. Blake asks, who could create such a powerful, dangerous, and beautiful creature like the tiger? It's not just about the tiger, it's about the nature of God and good versus evil. If the same God created both the innocent lamb and the fierce tiger, then God must have a complex nature. This poem makes us think about the balance of innocence and experience in the world. Next poem that we are going to discuss in this part is London. Blake paints a haunting picture of the city during the Industrial Revolution. He hears the mind-forced manacles, metal chains created by fear, poverty, and social rules. The people are not physically imprisoned, but their thoughts are trapped. He mentions the cries of chimney sweepers, the curse of soldiers, and even the suffering of young women. It's a strong political poem. Blake is clearly criticizing the government, the church, and the loss of personal freedom. The next poem that we are going to discuss is The Chimney Sweeper. This version of The Chimney Sweeper is darker than the one in Songs of Innocence. The child is abandoned by his parents, who think they have done the right thing by sending him to work. Meanwhile, the church pretends everything is fine. Blake is angry here. He shows how society uses religion to cover up cruelty and how children are left to suffer in silence. It's a powerful example of how innocence is destroyed by a corrupt system. In The Garden of Love, Blake returns to a place that once brought joy, only to find it taken over by rules and religion. The garden is now filled with grapes, and priests walk around with black gowns providing joy and love. This poem criticizes how organized religion suppresses natural human desires and happiness. Blake believed that love, imagination, and freedom were being replaced by control and guilt. These poems from Songs of Experience show Blake's genius for combining powerful imagery with deep moral questions. He exposes the hypocrisy of society, the dangers of blind obedience, and the sorrow that comes when innocence is lost. Now that we have explored key poems from both Songs of Experience and Songs of Innocence, let's compare the two collections and see how they speak to each other. William Blake designed these two collections as contrary states of the human soul. That means they show two sides of life. Songs of Innocence reflects a world seen through a child's eyes, pure, hopeful, and trusting. In contrast, Songs of Experience shows the same world after it has been touched by pain, corruption, and harsh realities. In Innocence, we see themes of love, protection, nature, and spiritual comfort, but in Experience, those ideas are challenged. For example, the kind shepherd in Innocence becomes distant or absent in Experience. Joy is replaced by repression. The child who once felt safe now feels abandoned. A great example of this contrast is the two chimney sweepers poems. In Innocence, the child has hope. He dreams of freedom and angels. In Experience, the tone is bitter. The child knows he has been betrayed by both his parents and the church. Blake also questions God in different ways. In Innocence, God is a loving protector. In The Tiger, he becomes a mysterious and even dangerous creator. These opposing views make us ask deeper questions about religion, justice, and the meaning of life. By placing these poems side by side, Blake isn't saying one view is right and the other is wrong. He is showing that both innocence and experience are part of human life. We begin in innocence, but we can't avoid experience. The real message is to recognize both, to grow in awareness without losing our inner light. William Blake was not just a poet, he was a visionary thinker. Beneath the simple language and childlike imagery of his poems lie deep philosophical and spiritual questions. Blake believed that human beings are not only physical but also spiritual in nature. In Songs of Innocence, he explores the purity of the soul and its connection to God, nature, and divine love. But in Songs of Experience, he reveals how society, through institutions like the church, the state, and industry, corrupts that spiritual essence. Philosophically, Blake challenges rationalism and materialism. He saw imagination as the highest form of human understanding, what he called the divine imagination. For Blake, true insight doesn't come from reason alone, but from a deeper spiritual awareness. In this way, Blake's work is not just poetry, it's a call to awaken the soul, to recognize the divine within ourselves, and to resist the forces that numb our spirit. Ultimately, Blake invites us to embrace both innocence and experience, not to reject one, but to grow through both. His poems remind us that wisdom comes not from escaping the world, but from seeing it with both open eyes and an open heart. Now let us take a moment to appreciate the unique artistic and stylistic features that make Songs of Innocence and of Experience truly one of a kind. William Blake was not just a poet, he was also an artist. He personally engraved, illustrated, and hand-colored his poems using a method he called illuminated printing. This means that every poem came with its own artwork, filled with rich symbols, flowing figures, and dreamlike scenery. The art and the words are not separate, they work together to create deeper meaning. Blake used simple, almost nursery rhyme like language, especially in Songs of Innocence. But don't let that fool you. The simplicity is powerful. It contrasts sharply with the deep, often dark ideas underneath, especially when we move into Songs of Experience. This contrast helps Blake show the loss of innocence and the harshness of the real world. Blake's poems are full of symbols. The lamb represents innocence and Christ-like purity. The tiger represents power, violence, and the mystery of creation. Children often symbolize purity, while institutions like the church and the government are shown as controlling forces that suppress the human spirit. Stylistically, Blake uses repetition and rhyme to give his poems a musical chant-like quality. This makes them memorable and almost hypnotic, reinforcing their message through sound. Finally, Blake's tone is visionary. He is not just describing the world, he is reimagining it. He often speaks with a prophetic voice, challenging readers to think spiritually, morally, and creatively. So, Blake's genius lies not just in what he says, but in how he says it, through images, rhythm, symbols, and a unique style that continues to inspire poets and artists even today. And that brings us to the end of our exploration of William Blake's Songs of Innocence and of Experience. Through these paired collections, Blake invites us to see the world through two contrasting lenses, one of childlike purity and hope, and the other of harsh reality, corruption, and the disillusionment. By doing so, he helps us question the systems that shape our lives, that is, religion, society, power, and even our own sense of morality. Blake's unique blend of poetry, visual art, and philosophy continues to inspire generations, reminding us that true vision lies in holding both innocence and experience together, not as opposites, but as necessary companions in human journey. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comment section what's your favorite poem from the collection, or how do you interpret Blake's ideas about innocence and experience. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.